Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We continue our 2023 position previews for the 2023 season. Last week took care of the catcher preview. Go check that out if you haven't already. This week we've got first base, and I'll tell you what, KJ Burney, a lot of interesting first basemen. Obviously, 4 of the top 20 hitters or so are all first basemen, and then a lot of interesting guys counted down the ranks in first base. So let's go team by team and take a look at the first base situation, starting with 18U. This one's pretty clear cut. Obviously, Ian Lancaster and Elliot Myers kind of going to be your first base tandem. And KJ, I'll go with you on this one. Obviously, two, I would say, proven guys, 2 guys who've been around for a long time, kind of showing what they're worth here in the Bears. Tell me about this first base situation here at 18U.
That's probably two of their key hitters as well, and Elliot's going to play a major role in that pitching staff, so Ian will get his time there, and Ian might even play a little bit on that pitching staff. So, either way you go, you're going to get a strong player over there, and I expect big season from both of them.
Yeah, 100%. I think both of them, maybe a little bit different types of hitters, but definitely I think going to be productive in that lineup. And I think they're both relatively on even ground on the defensive side as well. I know Elliott's worked really hard on his defense for the past 2 years, and he's improved a lot over there. So I expect big things. Obviously, 2 of the more proven commodities in the Bears at first base on that team. Not a lot of speculation with them. So going to be interesting. But I think both those guys are going to be big producers for that 18U squad. Moving on to 16U, Burnstill and Bernie. Going to throw this one to you. Obviously, a lot of different guys. Kind of a mystery at first base right now for this team. A big competition. I know, obviously, Will Brotherton's going to get some time over there. Brody Sandler. Maybe Caleb Kamsky, who's kind of the big EH last year. Vince D. Piazza could play there as well. Kind of give me some clarity on the 16U first base situation.
Obviously Will and Brody are the guys, or were the guys last year over at first base. I think they'll have an equal shot here, battling it out there. You could see a little Vinny D over there, and Caleb Kamsky, he's going to be in the lineup. He's going to be in the lineup every single game. So we're talking about putting him somewhere in the field. He could see some time over there as well.
Yeah, Will Brotherton, a player I like a lot, a guy who I think works pretty hard. He's definitely a very good kid. And I think if he could just get a little bit more consistent at the plate, he could definitely steal that first base starting role away, because it's definitely an open competition right now for that 16U Burnstill squad. Moving on to 15U, obviously this one, again, pretty clear situation. Vince Dalton going to be the starting first baseman in this 15U squad. And Bernie, I'll throw this one back to you. Vince, obviously, a MVP for the summer season last year. I would say the best hitter in the Bears, no doubt, in April and May. And then maybe tap it off a little bit in the fall. But I would say still a top 10, 15 hitter in the Bears. Bernie, give me your thoughts on Vince Dalton in this upcoming season.
Yeah, opposite of the 16 Burnstill situation. 15 Dalton has their guy here, and Vince Dalton, he's going to be in the lineup every single game. He's going to be right there, 3 to 4 in the order. He's a big bat for them. His glove, I think, is a little undervalued. He's not bad over there at first base. So, he'll be the guy over there 99% of the time for them.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Nobody really talks about Vince's glove. And, he's not necessarily Eric Latreille over there, where he's just a platinum glove caliber first baseman, but he's very, very solid over there and definitely not going to make very many mistakes. So 100% agree there. Moving on to 14U, this one, again, kind of a competition, kind of a tandem here with Eric Latreille and Evan Little kind of being the 2 big names. Eric, definitely the mainstay, the proven commodity. I would say probably a little bit better defensively is Eric Latreille. And then you got this guy who's maybe kind of a question mark, and Evan Little, who in about 30 at-bats last year really showed he could be one of the better hitters on that team, and definitely going to get a chance this year to kind of take that role. KJ, looking at this first base staff, obviously 2 very solid options. Give me your thoughts on the 14U first base situation.
I think it's going to be interesting to see where the team goes because, knowing Rob, he loves a really good defensive first baseman in Eric, but also knowing Rob, he loves a guy who's going to hit a lot of home runs, and that could be Evan Little. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes with that. I think it could go either way, and either way, I think it's going to pan out for them.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to look at these 2 and say, okay, Eric's the defensive option and Evan's the offensive option. But I will say, I think both of them kind of get slept on when you look at Evan Little's actually a pretty good defender over there. I know if you look at him, he doesn't look like he'd be a great defensive first baseman, but he's actually pretty slick over there. And Eric Latreille on the other side is, I think, a better hitter than people kind of give him credit for. I think he puts up good at bats. He hits for more power than you'd think. He hit at least 2 home runs last year, maybe a couple more. He's a very solid player. So I think both those guys definitely with an opportunity. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think they can both find time in this lineup as well. I know Eric Latrinia's potentially working on catching. I know Evan Little obviously could find a home at EH as well. So going to be a very interesting situation over there. Landon Nixon as well could play some first base there. So we'll see what happens. Definitely an interesting situation at 14U. Moving on, 13U Floyd. This situation, I would say more of a tandem. Jacob Mond probably going to get the majority of innings at first base for this team. And then Lucas Wilburn as well is going to play a lot of first base when Mond's pitching or playing other positions. And then Willie B will also play the outfield. This is a pretty solid tandem. Again, Bernie, I'm going to head this one to you. Another situation where I think both of these guys are going to be in the lineup. So which one is playing first base may be irrelevant. But both these guys get a lot of production. Give me your thoughts on this 13U situation.
I mean, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong here. I think it's a lot like the 18U Floyd situation with Elliot and Ian. But like you said, they're both going to be in the lineup. I know Willie B can move around the outfield if he has to. Mon can move around the infield or outfield if you need him to. So two very versatile guys, both good bats, both really good defensively at first or anywhere you put them. So two good options here.
Yeah, both guys who can pitch as well. So both of them are going to play first base. And I think it's going to be a very solid situation. Both these guys should hit in the top 6, 7 spots in the order. A very strong first base situation for 13U. Moving on to 12U, this situation, I would say kind of a mystery right now. I would say the projected starter, at least from my end, is probably going to be Jordan Waring moving to that first base spot, but a lot of different options. Caden Inman could play there. I've heard Garrett Knight might be working in at first base, and then you got some in-string prospects like Ryder Beckerman. KJ, obviously 12U coach. Give me some spotlight here on this 12U first base situation.
Yeah, it's definitely hasn't been decided yet, but we have a pretty good idea who's, our guys are going to be there. And, really on that team, you can't really go wrong offensively with any of those guys. Jordan, Caden, Garrett, they can all hit at the plate. So I think it's going to come down to, I want a guy who's going to be able to make I don't need a guy who's going to be doing the splits and picking every single ball, but a guy who can consistently catch the ball at first base and make the whole infield better.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, even if you decided on Jordan or Caden, both those guys pitch. So you're going to have multiple guys playing that first base situation. KJ, I am actually going to throw this one back to you here. Jordan Waring, I would say last year, definitely a very great hitter, once again, but maybe wasn't the top 2 or 3 hitter he was back last year. KJ, give me your thoughts on Jordan. I think he had a little bit of a better fall. And again, he's a top 15 hitter last year. I mean, I'm not saying he was disappointing, but maybe got away from that top 2, 3 production. Give me your thoughts on Jordan going into this season.
Yeah, I think sometimes these guys can be overshadowed with the rest of the lineup. We have such a good lineup. Jordan does his job, and it kind of seems like, he's not playing as well as he did when, before Jordan was our best hitter by far, and he was carrying the whole workload of the team. He was scoring all the runs. Now we don't really have to rely on Jordan to get it done every time at the plate. We have 10 guys in the lineup who can hit. So I think it's kind of a misconception that he's not still a big-time hitter, because he is. He's just filling the lineup with, 9 other big-time hitters.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Moving on to 11U, Bernie. This is your team, obviously. A very clear-cut situation, at least in my opinion. Harrison Blebaum, arguably the best hitter in the Bears last fall, led the Bears in home runs. Seems like it's going to be his job, Bernie, but maybe I'm speculating. I'll go ahead and throw this one to you. Tell me about the 11U first base situation.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's that much of a debate here. It will be Harrison Blebaum at first base. Similar to the 15U Dalton, Vince Dalton situation over there. Harrison's the guy. He has a decent glove over there. But you're going to get the massive bat. I would argue at least that Harrison's a top 5, not a top 3 hitter in the Bears. And he has the potential to be the top 1 hitter in the Bears one day. And, even though I think this job has been clearly his since fall ended, basically, since winter started, he still might be the hardest worker at 11U, which is where I give a lot of props to Harrison.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And, Bernie, one more thing. We talk about Harrison obviously as being this gigantic bat and maybe a question mark on defense. But I would say, looking at your practices the last couple weeks and, talking to you, his glove's been looking a lot better. Tell me about Harrison's glove a little bit the last couple weeks.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Working through his drills lately, Harrison has made the whole infield look better. I give big credit to Harrison individually, that making the whole infield look better during practice. And, it's actually, his glove is pretty solid over there.
Yeah, 100%. those are all our starting situations for each varsity team. And before we throw it to our sleepers and breakouts, I want to go ahead and go through a couple prospects, because a lot of interesting prospects down at first base, and one of them at 13U, obviously my age, is John Armbruster, a guy who's been around for a little while now, putting in a lot of work, and I would say he's on the upward path, but nice, slow and steady. He hasn't been one of these guys who shot up as soon as he joined, but he's been definitely on this upward trend, and he's getting better and better and better. And you see some of these swings he takes in free swing, some of these swings he takes in the cage, and it's like, man, if he could show me that in a game, I could definitely see him getting to this top squad. Maybe not this year, but going forward in his Bears career. And his glove has also taken a nice step forward. Bernie, I know you've got an 11U first base prospect that you want to talk about here. Tell me about Daud Ishmael.
Yeah, no one knows this guy's name yet. He was new last fall, and just first of all, if you look at him, just pure physical attributes, he's a massive kid. He's Harrison Blaybomb size, if not even a little bigger, but he's very raw right now. I think he needs a lot more reps. Hopefully, we can give him a free swing, and I think he's still going to be a year or two out. But I think in a couple years, you could see him being maybe like a Diego Buccio type. I know Kennedy has that type of hitter. So yeah, looking forward to this kid.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Again, I would be surprised if he made a huge impact this year, but I definitely think down the line he could be a big player for that 11U Burnsville squad. All right, let's move into our sleepers and breakouts at the first base position. Once again, a sleeper is a guy who's kind of getting slept on. What I mean by that is we expect their production to be a lot higher than maybe the public perception of this guy. It could be a bottom team guy, could be a top team guy who's maybe not getting the props he deserves. That's a sleeper. A breakout is a guy who's going to bust through that tier. For me, the 5 tiers are kind of superstar, star, starter, role player, and prospect. So a breakout is a guy who's going to go from one tier and break through maybe 1 or 2 tiers up ahead. Let's go ahead and start with our sleepers. KJ, going to start with you. Give me your sleeper at the first base position.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to CC Caleb Kamsky here, man. This guy is a legit bat. If you look at his fall, man, he had a monster fall. This guy's a monster hitter. Defense, I'm sure they're gonna find a spot for him. Maybe it's probably gonna be at DH, but even if you put him in a position, it's worth the amount of upgrade you're gonna get at the bat. So. And, you watch this guy in BWL, he looks like he's one of the older guys. He's actually one of the youngest guys in there, and this guy, he's starting to take better at bats in the BWL. Week 1, he was a little jumpy, but I thought, the last couple weeks he's laid off, his pitches, or laid off breaking balls in the dirt. He's not chasing pitchers' pitches. He's hitting fastballs, and he's hitting them hard.
Yeah, and the thing about CC that I think a sleeper is a great term for him is if you look at the fall, he was maybe a top 15 hitter in the fall. He was very, very good, but maybe didn't get the recognition he deserved being on that 16U Burnsville squad. Definitely, I think, now with some more eyes on him this year, he's definitely going to overperform people's expectations and maybe be a surprise for a lot of people. Bernie, give me your sleeper at the first base position.
Yeah, my sleeper here is going to be from 14U Floyd. It'll be Evan Little. Yeah, man, I think regardless of if he wins technically the starting first base job, I think he will be in the lineup most games if he continues to work hard here. He's going to get a lot of at-bats. We saw him in a small sample size last year where he performed very well. I think it only gets better from here, and I think he can make a big impact for that 14U squad.
Yeah, a guy I liked a lot last year, had a very nice fall, and a guy that I like a lot going into this year as well. I think that's a very nice pick for a sleeper. For me, I'm going to go with a guy that maybe a whole lot of people don't know. He's a guy that I like a lot. I think he's shown some really good stuff, and that's Anthony Young. He's a guy who's in the prospect ranks of that 15U age group, and a guy that if you look at his hitting stats, put up some really nice numbers, especially this last fall. Over the course of the entire 2022 season, he had a basically equal strikeout to walk rate. And it's not like he's one of these guys who's striking out and walking 40% of the time, just going up there and taking until he either strikes out or walks. He had a 14% strikeout rate, 14% walk rate. Very good plate discipline. And if you look at him, you know he's got power. I think you'd like to see him hit for a little bit more power consistently, and that's what it's going to take to really push him up the 15U rankings. But it wasn't like he hit for no power last year. I know he had a home run this fall, had several doubles as well. If he could really put the power together, that could what sends him up these 15U ranks, and I'd be excited to see what he does this year. Moving into our breakouts, Bernie, I'll start this one with you. Give me your breakout at the first base position.
I'll go to the 18U Floyd team here and pick up Ian Lancaster. Ian, I think, again, kind of like Evan Little, whether he wins the whether he's starting first baseman or if he's playing somewhere else or he's EHing, he's going to get his at-bats. I think he's going to have a monster season here. I think right now, if talking about your 5 categories, I think he's somewhere in the star range, but I think by the end of the season he could be in the superstar range. And talking about that team, you're going to have Mac Floyd and Brendan Nickerson up there at the top two hitters probably. But I think that third guy could be Ian Lancaster on a very good 18U Floyd roster.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, one thing I've seen with Ian is in the BWL, one thing, at least week 1 and maybe into week 2 as well, he was just being very, very passive at the plate. And I know, KJ, you had a conversation with him, and since then, he's been on an absolute tear in BWL. Tell me about that conversation you had with Ian, and I know he's on kind of a KJ approach going forward. Tell me about that approach.
Yeah, me and Ian sat down, and basically I told him, man, these pitchers, they want you to walk. Ian was working all these walks, and it seemed like he was doing really well, but, the pitchers were happy when Ian walks. And as one of those, as a top hitter, when you walk, it almost hurts the team. And so, I sat down with Ian. We wrote up this approach where it's a 2-swing approach. That's what we call it. But it's not necessarily you're taking 2 swings every bat, but it's the approach to take 2 swings every bat. It's a mental approach more than it is a physical. I'm not saying go up there when it's a 3-0 count, swinging a pitch over your head just because you have to get 2 swings in at bat. But it's the approach to want to hit. It's the approach to want to swing every at bat. Not necessarily swing at the pitcher's pitch, but go up the mentality, man, that I got to hit here because if I'm wasting my at bat if I walk almost.
Yeah, 100%. And KJ, when I first heard about this approach you have with Ian, it really made a lot of sense to me, and I think could apply to a lot of players in the Bears. Bernie, you talk about Ian being in this starter to star range, and I think what separates a lot of the superstars in the Bears to the guys in kind of those next 2 tiers are superstars are up there to hit, man. And I think sometimes some of these guys suffer from not kind of underestimating what pitches they can hit, right? They see a pitch and they don't swing at it because they're like, I can't hit that. But in reality, if they actually swung at it, man, especially these guys with elite hand-eye coordination, they can put great swings on balls that maybe they necessarily don't believe they can. So obviously, since Ian's been on this approach, he's been on an absolute tear. So hopefully he keeps that approach going into the season. KJ, going with you, who is your breakout at the first base position?
Yeah, I'm also going to go to 18U. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go Elliot Myers. I think it's often depicted Elliot's this big-time pitcher, but, I've been very, very impressed with his offense in BWL. This guy is a legit power hitter. And, you're going to stick him in a lineup now where he's not necessarily going to bat in a key spot. So, you see Elliot batting 7-hole, you're going to think as a pitcher, throw this guy fastballs, and you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I would say for Elliot, again, I think he's kind of in that starter tier. For him to break into that star, even superstar tier, I think the biggest thing for him is just needs to cut down the swings and misses on balls in the strike zone. I think Elliot has done a really good job over the past year limiting the pitches that he chases. He's not necessarily swinging at those curveballs in the dirt or fastballs at his eyes anymore. So the big thing for him is just limit those swings and misses on hittable pitches, right? Again, the difference between a superstar and a starter is he don't miss that pitch down the middle, right? Elliott's still missing that pitch a little bit too often. So I think for him to get into that superstar range, that's the pitch he needs to hit more often. I think he's definitely capable of it, looking at some of his at-bats in the BWL. For me, I'm going to go with a guy at 13U, Lucas Wilburn. He's a guy who I think had a very nice transformation last year. Looking at the last spring and summer, he was on the second team. He was on that 13U Bell squad. He was a prospect, moving up the ranks, gets a chance in the fall to be a starter and really succeeds. And I think going into this winter and going into next season, he's got a chance to break into that star or even superstar level of play. Lucas, the big thing always for him has been kind of the mentality of being afraid to strike out, where he goes up and he gets in a situation where he just wants to tap a ground ball to second base, just so he can say he didn't strike out, right? I think for him to really transform into that superstar player, he's got to not be afraid of swinging and missing and going up there trying to hack, hitting these doubles, triples, homers. And I think he's come a long way with that. I think you look at his BWL at bats, he's definitely been up there trying to do damage. And he's a guy who, if he can really put it together, I mean, it's not a size problem. His power. He's big, he's strong. If he can put it together and really get that mentality of trying to do damage every at bat, I think he could definitely jump into that superstar conversation. Definitely a really top level hitter. A lot of good first basemen here, and that's been our First Base 2023 preview. Next week, we're going to take on second base and a lot of interesting players at that position as well. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to you all next week.